The first book of Moses, Bereshith, chapter 1, first creation by Elohim. In the former time periods, as a powerful sign of working, chief son and heir Elohim filled with choice things, behold, as a sign Shemayim, the place of the names, and behold, as a sign Aratz, the chief place of running. But observe how Aratz was unorganized and empty, and Sheshach rose up from the deep waters, went up to its face, but the Ruach Elohim, as a wall of protection, moved violently upon the surface of the waters. Elohim then declared, light he will exist, and light he will exist. And Elohim gazed upon that beautiful light, and Elohim made distinctive the light from the darkness. And to the light Elohim called out the name Ya'um, and to the darkness he called out the name Leah Laha. This was the close and the dawn of the first age.
The Ketub Abarayas, or the Paleo Hebrew, is a language over 5,000 years old. It chronicles a story branching forth from ancient time. His story, Yahweh. Walk into his story. Read the Paleo Hebrew scriptures.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody. It was a rush getting from this seat to this seat from my last group where we met on Friday night to this. I went a little over time talking. It was a very emotional discussion that I'm still trying to kind of recover from. And I actually recorded that one, and I'll probably be uploading it to Patreon soon. I think. There's no promise on that, but I think I probably will. Just get everyone up to date on the emotionally wrenching and roller coaster a couple of weeks it's been. And of course, last week I was feeling so under the weather that I canceled at the last minute. I met with my Friday night group, and I'm just like, I'm really not feeling good. I'm overworked. I think I'm just going to cancel tonight. They were telling me people are coming. I'm like, no, you need to take care of yourself. But in truth, I was just, I think the physical condition was a response to just spiritually, emotionally, how, wrenched I was, having to make some tough decisions. That being said, I'm not skipping last week's, but we're also moving ahead, which means I'm going to attempt something that I have never attempted before in the history of this channel, and that is 2 Torah portions for the price of 1. So we have, as you can imagine, I'm covering 9 chapters of the Bible tonight. We need to get right into it. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Thank you for being here. A quick reminder, and still, I'm not given permission to give you the further details on this. Just put it on your calendars. September 25th through October 4th, Sukkot, Tuck 2026 in Branson, Missouri area. It's so close to Branson. I think it basically is Branson, but I'm not 100% certain. But it's going to be awesome, and I can't even tell you how awesome it's going to be quite yet. So just have to put it on your calendars and get ready, and it's going to happen. One of the things I recommend for everyone here is joining our Tuck Book Club. And this is something that, this is, of course, Patreon. This is something that, whether you give $5, $15, $30, $50, $75, $100, $150, whatever you decide to give each month, we do something very different. I don't know what all the other Patreons groups out there do, but we give you the exact same money back in the form of a gift certificate / coupon that can be redeemed in our store with our books, our health products, our teas, all sorts of stuff. So, and we're putting out new books all the time, not just the Paleo Hebrew Scriptures, though that is the direction we are putting a heavy focus on. Obviously, we have a lot of authors here. Of course, we have some of my own books, but we have many coming in. And one of the recommendations I put out there is the Torah portion study guides. A lot of people like this. This is one of our bigger sellers. And so what I've done is I've taken Pamela's translation of the Paleo and I put it next to, so we have the Paleo tradition, we have the Masoretic Hebrew tradition next to the Aramaic and the Greek. The same verses side by side, and you can go through all your Torah portions and you can study notes. I love it. I love looking at the different traditions and gleaning from the wisdom therein. So this is intended for your own personal use, for friends, for Bible studies, or what have you. People are starting to buy these in bulk and handing them out in groups. So check that out. That's one of the things you can do to redeem, your investment into this ministry that we have as study tools to give back to you. And of course, we have we have the Paleo Hebrew Scriptures. And, I did have to give the announcement this last week. This is part of how heart-wrenching this was, that I had to cut funding on this project. It doesn't mean that it's over. And Yah bless Pamela and Rebecca. They are going forward. I can't ask them to work, but they are going forward without pay to do this. That is amazing. So that's the ring bearer for you. And the burden, they are carrying this burden. And I am asking to rally the troops in this Deuteronomy chapter 20 situation. If you don't know what I'm talking about there, you're gonna have to listen to when I drop the audio recording into Patreon, hopefully soon, or just read some of the letters that I put out to the community this last week. I put out a couple of them, one of them which is a prophetic word. We also have, of course, for all you poets out there, I've had enough people sending in submissions that I think we're going to get our first Rakia chapbook done this spring. So this is really a community project. This is open up to people outside the community as well, but this is a community project. It's been so exciting for people that I know here that have been here at the Unexpected Cosmology for years, sending in their stuff, and I get to read it. And it's fun publishing it. So come by, check out Rakia, and send your submissions. Here's one of the books we put out recently by Vicky Joy Anderson. She's in Eli Marzuli's camp. She's someone who I brought on to interview over a year ago. And we did the video, They Only Come Out at Night. And that was about a year. It was less than a year ago, actually. This is her amazing retelling of the Pilgrim's Progress in rhyme poetry. This is our first release with Rakia, The Weary Wayfarer. You can redeem that, of course. And this right here, The Live Religion. Have I talked about this yet? I had an amazing phone conversation with the individual who has brought this text forward. And this is being proposed as scripture. All right. So the philosophical, theological question that has been thrown out there for years is, has all revelation come to an end? Has all scripture come to an end? Can there be more scripture? This is ancient stuff that he's pulling out here. But we're going to be, I'm going to be bringing this individual on. It's going to be a multi-week study. Could be 12, 15, 20 weeks. I don't really know at this point. And he and I are going to be going through this line for line, and we're going to be asking, does this line up with the Torah? The lived religion can really only be experienced rather than explained. And just so you don't think I'm giving you a sales pitch here, I'm not. We are handing this away for free for all you kids out there. I am Gen X myself, and I like physical paper in my hands. I'm old school like that. I'm a dinosaur, fine. I know a lot of you feel the same way, but if you want to go get a copy of this, we hand this out on the website. You can find the link when you go find in the store. There's actually, I think there should be a link there. It's on our Sacred Scripture page. So come give it a read. All right, let's start tonight with the Lord's Prayer. We'll get right into it. Starting with the standard. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever and ever. Amen. reading from the Paleo. Our Father, set apart is your name, and your royal dominion, your pleasure, your delight, you will exist in Shamayam and in Aratz. And give us our bread continually, and pardon our faults, our sins and missteps, in the same manner in which we forgive those who commit faults, sins, missteps against us. And all, do not bring us into the hands of testing, but guard us from all evil. Amen. This is kind of this is connecting Genesis to Exodus, and because of how much we have to cover tonight, I'm just going to skip right over this. This is going through each of the patriarchs. This is from Legends of the Jews. Great little reading about how each of them died in time. But there is one thing I wanted to point out here. This is from also the Legends of the Jews. This is when Simon passed away. It says, as having completed his admonitions to his son, Simon passed away. And they're quoting here, I believe, the Dead Sea Scrolls, the Tales of the Patriarchs. Simon passed away and was gathered to his fathers at the age of 120 years. His sons placed him in a coffin made of imperishable wood so that they might carry his bones to Hebron, as they did in secret during the war between the Egyptians and the Canaanites. Now that's a really interesting little phrase there, because the other fathers that are dying off one at a time, they're actually being carried over with Egypt's help. The government of Egypt, they're giving them escorts, mourners, funding, whatever they need to go over there and get these people over there. But now this war has broken out between the Egyptians and Canaanites. We have very little details of this war. I'm curious if there are in the records in Egypt, if this event has been discovered. But this is the same event that Moses' father, he gets stuck over there. So we don't know. We know that he was over there like burying somebody. And I always just assumed it was Levi, because that would make sense. But here we see that this war is happening with Simon. And so Moses' father was stuck there. He couldn't get back into Egypt. And you kind of have to wonder here, is the people who they snuck over the border, were they able to get back until this war ended? It was quite a long war where they closed off the border. So with that, let's just break right into this tonight. The first part of the portion is Exodus 1:1 through 6:1. The name of the 12 patriarchs. These are the names of the sons of Yashua who came to Mitzrayim. The chief Yaakov and his family with him. Reuben, Shema, Simeon, Levi, or Lawaya, and Yissachar, Zebulun and Benjamin, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, and Asher. And existed all the Nephash proceeding from the loins of Yaakov, 70 persons. You will recall we covered this last time. Yosef existed already in Mitzrayim. Now Yosef and all his brothers expired, and all their children. But the offspring of Yasharel were fruitful and became very, very powerful, and the land was filled with them. Now, you kind of have to pause here, and you have to wonder about this. How in the world did shepherds become powerful? I get the part that they filled the land, and that can happen really quickly with flocks. But how did they become powerful? Because shepherds in Egypt are not powerful people. They're the lowest of the low. And this isn't like a judgment on these children, whatever they were doing, but I'm under the impression that they have given up the life of shepherding. I just don't know how you could become powerful with sheep. I mean, I would like to see an example of how that works in history. Then an unheard of foreign conqueror arose over the Mitzrayim who knew nothing of Yosef. You have to wonder if this was a result of that war between Canaan and Egypt. I don't know. I really don't know. And he declared unto his nation, this people, the sons of Yasharel, are more in number and stronger than we. Therefore, let us deal wisely with them to prevent them increasing. For it is possible they might call out war and turn to join our haters and maybe fighting against us. I take that back. This was in Jasher. It actually gives a long account of this with Esau. And Esau teamed up with the people of like Midian and other areas, and they went and fought a very courageous war against Egypt. Egypt did come out on top of this, but they were like, they knew that the Hebrews were the same family through Abraham. And so that seemed to be what turned them there. They consequently placed labor masters over them to force them to build, and they built fortresses for Pharaoh, Pithom and Ramses. So how, again, like, you have to wonder about this. So now they're in the temple business. They're building pagan temples. Now we see here that they were forced into this, but I think there's more happening here than meets the eye. And I feel like the Hebrews in large part have forgotten their identity already. This is what we saw with Yaakov, where he's like, I want you to bury me back in this cave. I don't want you to leave me here because this is not our home. Do not get comfortable here. And I think that they did very quickly. So they consequently placed labor masters over them to force them to build, and they built fortresses. Okay, for Pharaoh, I read that, Ramses. But the more they oppressed them, the more they increased. Therefore, they trembled and feared before the sons of Yasharel. Consequently, the Matzareah endeavored to crush the sons of Yasharel. So they embittered their lives by cruel labor in the forges and in the brick kilns and in every labor upon the land, by every means possible trying to crush them. The king of Mitzrayim also summoned the midwives of the Hebrews, of whom the name of the chief was Shap-haraha. And the name of her lieutenant was, let me see if I can find this over here in the, it would be up here, Shipra and Pua, or Fa-wa-ha. And he decreed, when you cause the Hebrew women to bring forth, observe their children. If it is a son, slay him. If it is a daughter, let her exist. I mean, I understand the reason they did that, but it seems to me that, like, wouldn't you want more male workers than female? You know, like the women aren't going to go out there unless if they're trying to like interbreed. The Egyptians are like, yeah, we'll take your daughters and interbreed with them. But it seems like you would want the male workers to go out there and work because I don't know if the women are going to be building your temples. But the midwives feared Elohim and did not do as the king of Mitzrayim ordered them, but preserved the children alive. The king of Mitzrayim therefore summoned those midwives again and inquired from them, why have you not executed the plan, but have preserved the male children's lives? When the midwives replied to Pharaoh, because they are not like Egyptian women when in labor, but lively, so that they bring forth before the time that the midwives have come unto them. I don't know if you have experienced this, you Hebrew women or Hebrew men with your wives. I can very much attest to this with my wife. Oh my goodness, when she as a 40-year-old woman, I say this with all caution as a man, past her prime, because I'm feeling very old as a parent, let me tell you. And she gave birth to our daughter, like in Missouri in the woods, and we had a Hebrew midwife come. Like she was on fire. She was a trooper. She put little girls, little 20-year-old, pregnant women to shame. Let's put it that way. That's what was happening here. Therefore, Elohim showed kindness to those midwives. So the people increased and were very strong. And seeing that the midwives reverently feared Elohim, he fashioned to them houses. Pharaoh then commanded this people, declaring, every boy that is born, throw him in the river, but let the girls exist. So this is an interesting tale about becoming slaves. And without going into the history here of the West, it is interesting how this is it's kind of a multi-generational thing, that every generation that comes along, the government convinces the people to volunteer to put themselves further and further and further into slavery until you wake up one day in the barracoon and you don't know how that happens. You're like, I'm literally on a slave plantation and I don't know how we got here. And it's a multi-generational thing. And it really is amazing how it works, that it really is voluntary. Now, they will hold a lot of, candy out for you. They will pressure you. They may threaten you, but at the end of the day, it's like there's something very important about this. And the way Satan operates as the accuser is that we really do have to give our consent. And we just went through that with the psychodrama with COVID, where there was all this pressure being put on some people. Now, some people really did refuse to play the game and they were fired and so on and so forth. And by the way, a lot of those people are coming on top now if they're taking legal action, because it was very unconstitutional what happened. But most of us who refused to play the game, like nothing happened. The threats that came our way, it didn't come to fruition. There was nothing they could really do about it. But most people in fear gave in to the government, this tyrannical overreach, and be like, yes, we will bow our head reverently. We'll do what you want. So this is what we read in Jasher about this incident. And all the elders of Mitzrayim heard the counsel of the king, and the counsel seemed good in their eyes, and the eyes of the servants of Pharaoh, and in the eyes of Mitzrayim, and they did according to the word of the king. You see right here, they say, you have seen what the children of Esau and Ishmael did to us, who came to war against us and wished to destroy us. So that's the context of that right there. I'm trying to skip ahead here. Okay. And when Mitzrayim and all the children of Yashua heard that the servants of Pharaoh had spoken, there came from the Mitzrayim and the children of Yashua to build with the servants of Pharaoh, Pithom and Ramses, but none of the children of Levi came with their brethren to build. Now, the reason I'm reading you this story, aside from the slavery issue, is understanding why Moses and Aaron were able to approach Pharaoh. And you notice how he wasn't like, get back to the fields, get to work. He couldn't, because the Levites were like, yeah, we're not playing this game. All the other Israelites, they played the game, and they should have never played the game. And the Levites are like, yeah, we're not going to go do that. So while Israel was slaves for those hundreds of years, and they're in Egypt for all those generations, the Levites are just doing their priestly duty. Apparently, they're not out there working the slime pits. And all the servants of Pharaoh and his princes came at first with deceit to build with all Yashruel as daily hired laborers, and they gave to Yashruel their daily hire at the beginning. So you see here that they were already skilled builders. Yashruel, they're not shepherds at this point, and they're agreeing to build these pagan temples. And the servants of Pharaoh built with all Yashruel and were employed in that work with Yashruel for a month. And at the end of the month, all the servants of Pharaoh began to withdraw secretly from the people of Yashruel daily. And Yashruel went on with the work at the time, but they then received their daily hire, because some of the men of Mitzrayim were yet carrying on their work with Yashruel at that time. Therefore, the Mitzrayim gave Yashruel their hire in those days, in order that they, the Mitzrayim, their fellow workmen, might also take the pay for their labor. It almost reminds me of a more dramatized version of what happened with Yaakov, with Laban, after he had already deceived his father. And at the end of a year and 4 months, all the Mitzrayim had withdrawn from the children of Yashruel, so that the children of Yashruel were left alone, engaged in the work. And after all they're like, I don't know why they're not noticing this. They're just so busy, I guess, in their work. They were quite the craftsmen, right? I mean, they were probably doing a really amazing job. They were probably totally okay with it, right? Totally fine. Yeah. And after all the Mitzrayim had withdrawn from the children of Yashruel, they returned and became oppressors and officers over them. And some of them stood over the children of Yashruel as taskmasters to receive from them all that they gave them for the pay of their labor. And the Mitzrayim did in this manner to the children of Yashruel day by day, in order to afflict in their work. And all the children of Yashruel were alone engaged in the labor, and the Mitzrayim refrained from giving any pay to the children of Yashruel from that time forward. I've actually been to places long time ago when I lived in California, and I was doing mission work down in Mexico with the Oaxacan tribe. The Oaxacans are not the the Spanish, I guess, Mexicans, so to speak. They are the original inhabitants, the natives, if you will. And they too were in similar situations where I go down there. It was modern day slave labor, and these employers would bring them onto their property, and they would give them, I guess, board, house and room and board, so to speak, but it would be like a slum, like with maybe a mattress on a muddy floor, in a little tiny stone room. And they may not pay them. And they just kept going out to the fields to work. And they just kept doing this over and over again. It's crazy to see how this happens in the modern world. And when some of the men of Yasharel refused to work on account of the wages not being given to them, then the exactors and the servants of Pharaoh oppressed them and smote them with heavy blows and made them return by force to labor with their brethren. Thus did all the Mitzrayim unto the children of Yasharel all the days. Amazing. Imagine what would happen if they all just be like one day, nope, not going down to the fields to work. What are you going to do about it? And all the children of Yasharel were greatly afraid of the Mitzrayim in this matter. And all the children of Yasharel returned and worked alone without pay. And the children of Yasharel built Pithom and Ramses, and all the children of Yasharel did the work, some making bricks and some building. And the children of Yasharel built and fortified all the land of Mitzrayim and its walls. And the children of Yasharel were engaged in work for many years until the time came when Yahweh remembered them and brought them out of Mitzrayim. But the children of Levi were not employed in the work with their brethren of Yasharel from the beginning until the day of their going forth from Mitzrayim. For all the children of Levi knew that the Mitzrayim had spoken all these words with deceit to the Yasharel. Therefore, the children of Levi refrained from approaching to the work with their brethren. It's wisdom is always foolishness to fools. That's enough of that right there. This is Amram, the father of Moses. There was a man in the land of Mitzrayim of the seed of Levi, whose name was Amram, the son of Kuhath, the son of Levi. So he's the grandson of Levi, the son of Yasharel. And this man went and took a woman, namely Jochebed, the daughter of Levi, his father's sister. That's interesting. So he takes that he's marrying his aunt, so she's actually the daughter of Levi, Moses' mother. So he's simultaneously the grandson and the great-grandson of Levi. And she was 126 years old, and he came unto her. And the woman conceived and bare a daughter, and she called her name Miriam, because in those days the Mitzrayim had embittered the lives of the children of Yasharel. And she conceived again and bare a son, and she called his name Aaron, for in the days of her conception Pharaoh began to spill the blood of the male children of Yasharel. Now notice here his sister Miriam means bitterness, right? Embittered lives. So we see a connection here with the New Testament, where all of a sudden there's like the three Marys. There's all these Marys. They started naming their children Miriam again because they felt that they were embittered. We usually think it's because of Rome, but it could be because the religious establishment had turned on them as well during that time and were embittering them. The reason, of course, that it says that he was 126 years old when he came unto her. It wasn't because he married her at 126 years. It's because he was stuck in Canaan during the war and he couldn't get out. All right, well, we have another scene here where Balaam, being Moses's his checkerboard duality, he is the opposite, of course, the darkness to Moses's light. He's coming in. He wants to destroy all of the Hebrews. Good old Balaam doing what he does, and he convinces them to start killing everyone. And so we get here. And when the children of Yasharel heard this thing, which Pharaoh had commanded, to cast their male children into the river, some of the people separated from their women and others adhered to them. It's interesting. So people just stopped coming to their women for intercourse, because what is the purpose of intercourse but to have children? I hate to break the news to some of you. And they're like, well, we're just not going to have that pleasure anymore if they're going to, it's going to end in the death of our child. And from that day forward, when the time of delivery arrived to those women of Yashruel, those who did come to their wives, who had remained with their husbands, as it says right there, they went to the field to bring forth there, and they brought forth in the field and left their children upon the field and returned home, which is kind of now, we didn't leave our daughter in the woods in Missouri. We brought her home with us, but it's actually kind of what we did, because we were like, we didn't want to have to jump through those hoops of, being masked up, going to the doctor's office, getting all the pressure for the prick and all that kind of stuff. We're like, you know what? We're going off into the woods. We'll see you later. We had the midwife go meet us out there. It wasn't a field. It was just the woods. And Yahuwah, who had sworn to their ancestors to multiply them, sent one of his ministering angels, which are in heaven, to wash each child in water, to anoint and swathe it, and to put into its hands 2 smooth stones, from one of which it sucked milk, and from the other honey. Take a minute to know that. That's really interesting. Now, we hear about the land of milk and honey as well, the promised land. This is even though I'm sure there was plenty of milk and honey in Canaan, no doubt about that. Physically, this, you can see right here, this is a reference to the spiritual realm, the blessed realm, the true land of promise, which has milk and honey. Of course, honey itself is considered a divine substance that the ancients would, when the child was first born, often before they brought it up to the woman's breast to have it drink from the milk, they would put a little bit of honey on the child's lips. And so here you see the angels doing the same thing. And he caused the terror to grow to its knees, by which it might cover itself, to comfort it and to cleave it to it through his compassion for her. I don't know what's happening. Are they becoming wild men? I don't know. That's pretty hairy children. And when Elohim had compassion over them and had desired to multiply them upon the face of the land, he ordered his earth to receive them, to be preserved therein till the time of their growing up, after which the earth opened its mouth and vomited them forth, and they sprouted forth from the city like the herb of the earth and the grass of the forest, and they returned each to his family and to his father's house, and they remained with them. What a weird passage. I love it. And the babes of the children of Yashruel were upon the earth like the herb of the field, through Elohim's grace to them. And when all the Mitzrayim saw this thing, they went forth each to his field with his yoke of oxen and his plow. They're hearing these tales of the Cabbage Patch Baby, and they're like, it's like these rumors spreading. It's like the latest conspiracy in Egypt, and they're like, I'm going to go to my field and see if I can dig up some of these Cabbage Patch Babies. And they plowed it up as one plows the earth at seed time. And when they plowed, they were unable to hurt the infants of the children of Yasharel, so the people increased and waxed exceedingly. And Pharaoh ordered his officers daily to go to Goshen to seek for the babes of the children of Yasharel. They're literally going out into the fields like soldiers and trying to find these Cabbage Patch Babies. And when they had sought and found one, they took it from its mother's bosom by force and threw it into the river. But the female child they left with its mother. Thus did the Mitzrayim do to Yasharel all the days. Yashar 67. So, yes, we're going to review this really quickly today, and it's interesting. I mean, I'm not going in. You guys all know this. It's all review. I'm not going into the population explosion that happened in the late 1700s, early 1800s. It really is interesting how genealogists will confess sometimes that all basically lines go back about 1,500 years, about 1,500 to the like 500s. And then it seems like all of humanity comes out of very few families that survived some sort of cataclysm at that time. And not only that, it's the same thing that happened again in the 1500s, where, this huge population explosion came from a certain line of people. Nevertheless, of course, you guys have all seen these before. This is actually one of the reasons I bring this up a lot. It's one of those great examples back when I was writing research papers every single week. And writing is a very slow process. It can take me several months sometimes. I start gathering ideas and getting research together. It's the same thing, I suppose, if you're making videos to get the research. But once you have the research, you can quickly make a video. You could just drop it out there in like a couple days, and it can take me weeks to write this stuff. And this is one of those instances where I'm writing about the Cabbage Patch Babies and all this stuff. I'm like really excited about it. I'm putting all this research together, the orphan trains and stuff. And there was another very, very popular YouTube channel, and they came out with, I'm like, no, as I'm getting ready. And so I'm trying to finish this. And they're like, oh, I'm like, okay, they left a lot of information out. Lo and behold, that was for part 2. And then like 1 week later, they came out with part 2. I'm like, no. And so whatever. It's one of those, it's kind of like one of those things in like Hollywood where they develop different films at the same time and one comes out first. Mine came out last. So that's just my lot in life. This is the one right here. Now, a lot of these, I mean, it's pretty crazy, right? Where they're just showing these examples of these babies sprouting out of the ground, and these people would just walk up and just take a baby, right? This woman here on the left, I have her name written down in this episode here. We'll get to it. She's the French woman. It's modeled after her, who she was, some would say, made the first film ever, and that is contested. First film in history, which was about harvesting the Cabbage Patch Babies. This one over here on the right is the oldest, and of course here we see the connection with them with the incubators as well, with the World Fairs. But over here on the right is the oldest that I have so far found. This goes back about 100 years before the advent of film. I love this because you see the cathedral in the background right there with the rose window, or the mandala, as I like to call it. And she's going down into this garden to check. She's kind of lifting up this cabbage, and she's checking, and there's a baby just hanging out underneath her cabbage in her garden. So this is, of course, I have to whiz through this tonight. I really like how it wasn't just cabbage, but there were also, there's that same woman that is being modeled in a lot of these pictures, the French woman, over and over again. And a lot of them are being modeled as coming up through the river, just like Moses did, coming up out of the weeds, the marshes. And there's something, I think, very spiritual about this too, and the connection to the stork. The storks to the ancients were a bird that was similar to bees or roosters or some other birds that had connections to the spiritual realm. So the ancients, one of the things about that made honey divine, it was the divine substance that came from the blessed realm, terrestrial paradise, because bees had access to it. Bees could go from the material to the spiritual realm. It's same thing with the roosters, that the roosters would tune us in each morning, and they still do, of course, to when the gates of heaven open up. Well, the same thing with the storks is that they have some sort of connection to the other realm, and this is where they were bringing in the babies. And the esoteric, people will scoff at this. That's not how babies are born. Yeah, we all know how babies are born, right? We all know that. I don't need to explain that to anyone out there. But this is where actually pre-existence comes in. This never came up in the discussion the other night. I would have liked to have taken us there. Maybe another part 2 is in order. But it's showing that these birds have connections to the other realm, and they're taking these pre-existent children and delivering them into the world. And isn't it? It's like we can't say enough how creepy it is. It's really like out of the first Star Wars movie, where the droids are kidnapped because these children would be kidnapped, and then they were put onto the Jawa, big old whatever that thing is called. I'm not enough of a Star Wars nerd to know what they call it. I think it was the sand crawler. Okay. Oh my goodness. I'm a nerd. It was the sand crawler. I remember that from my childhood, having those toys. And so they just bring out the droids and they just line them up, and you just, you go slap the thigh and check the wires in the back and look at the teeth, of the droids, and be like, I'll take these 2. And it's the same thing with the children, right? They would just haul them off. And some of these orphan trained children, they said in their old life that they lived a very good life and they had very good foster parents. Some didn't want to talk about it so much because it was not pretty. And I don't want to focus on that tonight, but it was pretty grim. So there's where we see the storks coming in there, going down into the bogs, the marshes, collecting them out of the weeds. And so you just think about this esoterically, right? Like, you know, I don't know what to tell you. Like, okay, what is this? Is that a real picture, or did they just set up, you know, look at that clever look? It's creepy. This is a creepy picture. I don't know. Is this genuine? Did someone go into the garden and like, oh my goodness, hey Ma, get the camera out of the pantry. I think we got a Cabbage Patch baby. Don't know what's happening here, or if they just set it up for like a Christmas card photo, you know, clever, whatever. But that's the most physical, documented example I think we have of something that may have really been happening, and I believe it. I know that sounds crazy. Now this is obviously faked. You can see that this is a studio putting these babies into these fake. I don't know, whatever they are, but that right there, that's creepy. That's a little creepy baby right there. You know, and they hear crying. You know, they're milking the cows in the morning, getting ready to churn the butter, go pick some of the eggs from the chickens. They're clucking, and they hear it crying, and they're like, "What in the world?" So, oh yeah, I told you to take a mental note of the stones. So, at a Barstein, Stein is a German word, which literally means stork stone. And according to the ancients, each of the children were given one, a stork stone. Now, not much is known about them, but if you were paying attention to the passage I read in Joshua, I told you to make a mental note. Ministering angels put two smooth stones into the hands of the babies, and the stone kept them alive until the moment they could be delivered to their mothers. And also the storks were angels in this scenario, which is to say the stork stories are speaking of the spiritual realm. So what I'm saying is that there is a possibility that these angels, I know you're probably envisioning, you know, people angels, right? But what if they were storks? What if they were literally storks in that scenario, the angels that were guarding them in the fields, that were then delivering them in a way, they were giving them the stork stones to preserve them. Something to think about. So this is the woman here who, Alice Guy Blash. I love French. I want to live in France the rest of my life. I will never be able to pronounce French. I was given the California tongue at the division of tongues at Babel. Anyways, that's her there. That's the film she made. The original film does not survive. She made a second film and was passing that around. So we only have the second film. We don't have the original. And this is one of the reasons why it is contested. All right. These are some shots from it. I mean, those little creepy doll heads, severed doll heads over here. Looks a little gruesome, but anyways, and there's the oldest one that we have. This one comes from 1820, nearly 70 years before the Alice Guy film. And it's interpreted there to mean that's where babies come from the Cabbage Patch. Not to overlook the fact that we do have a biblical connection to this in the Book of the Illuminators, chapter 25. This is what we read about. Here you see, I was trying to find, I guess these are artichokes here. I was trying to find something that resembled Mary Magdalene speaking to, quote unquote, the gardener in the garden that looked like a cabbage patch. So we got some artichokes here, close enough. This is what we read. Yosef, the commander, took his son Yosef, Nicodemus, and one other, and having already purchased a linen shroud, went to the place of execution and removed Yahshua from the cross. Wrapping him in the sheet, they carried Yahshua through the darkness to a tomb already cut out of the rock. It was a two-chambered cavern northwest of the city, having a ledge running around the inside, and the entrance faced eastward toward the place of execution. It was the north end of a garden planted with cabbages. That's all it says there. It doesn't say it was artichokes or apples or oranges or pretty flowers or, or a wine press, olives or anything like that. It was cabbages. So the resurrection of Yahshua, Messiah, happened in a cabbage patch. And the gardener was also the custodian of the tomb. Now, the reason I bring this all up in connection with our passage today is that there is an interesting comparison to where we are at in history right now. I would say, it's a little bit different of the first Passover story where Moses is leading them all out into the wilderness at once. There is a mass spiritual awakening right now, and I think most of us listening right now will agree. You're probably only listening to this because you maybe don't go to like Sunday morning church or whatever anymore. Maybe you have a Torah group like you meet on Sabbath. I don't really know, but I think we're all feeling that we're in the wilderness. We didn't all go out on the same night. We're all kind of meeting each other in the wilderness. Like, hey, you're out here too. And we're seeking Yahuwah. We're seeking to be disciplined and to be learned, to be discipled, and and so on and so forth. And so it is interesting that we're seeing the same account with Yasharel. There, some mass slaughtering event, something that happened. Yasharel is being preserved, and we see the same thing happening in our own realm, not more than 200 years ago. So. Chapter 2. Are we going to make it tonight? John Q was telling me before, and he's like, dude, you just do like 1.5, and then you'll do 1.5 next week. We might do that, just. But there was a man from the family of Levi. We already met this man. He took for himself a daughter of Levi, and the woman conceived and brought forth a son. When she looked on his beauty, she hid him for 3 months. But being no longer able to hide him, she fashioned a boat of bulrushes and pitched it with pitch and resin and placed it in the reeds on the bank of the river. But his sister stood at a distance to see what would happen to him. It was a beautiful little baby, probably a nice kind of like Gerber balding head, a little fuzz on it. Then the daughter of Pharaoh came down to bathe in the river, and her maids walked along the bank of the stream, and they noticed the boat amongst the rushes. So she stretched out her hand and took it. When she opened it, she saw the lad, and he cried, and she grieved over him and said, "It is one of the Hebrew children." She could have killed him right there on the spot, couldn't she? Just, yelled, "Guards," I mean, keep in mind, right? Like, she knows that they're going down to the quote-unquote cabbage patch every day, down to the fields, and they're trying to dig up these babies and kill them, right? And she knew all that was happening. All she had to do is just grab their attention. This baby would have been dead. Then his sister asked the daughter of Pharaoh. Now she's being pretty bold, isn't she? Miriam. This could endanger her life as well. "Shall I go and seek for you a nursing woman of the Hebrews so that she may nurse the lad for you?" And the daughter of Pharaoh replied to her, "Go." So she went immediately and called the mother of the child, to whom Pharaoh's daughter said, "Take this child and nurse it for me, and I will pay you the cost." Its mother therefore took the child and nursed it. When the lad grew up, he was taken to the daughter of Pharaoh as a son, and she called his name Mashahah. I wish I had the passage for you in Jasher tonight, and now I realize I botched. I don't have it, where Moses had at least a dozen names, and that his own family did not, just because she names him Moses, they don't call him Moses. And in fact, Pharaoh, I think, had even a different name for him, and his grandfather or whatever, they all have different names for him. He was a man of many names. But it was long after this, when Mashah had become great, that he went forth into his brothers and examined their condition. Then he saw a Mitzrayim striking a Hebrew who was related to him. Then he turned this way and that way, and not seeing anyone, he struck the Mitzrayim man and concealed him in the sand. At another time, when he was observing, there were 2 men, Hebrews, quarreling. So he did so to the wrongdoer, "Why did you strike your neighbor?" But he replied, "Who appointed you as a nobleman and judge over us? Are you going to murder me as you murdered the Mitzrayim man?" Then Mashahah was afraid and said to himself, "That affair is known to them." The matter was also reported to Pharaoh, who endeavored to execute Mashahah. But Mashahah fled from the face of Pharaoh and turned to the land of Midian, where he rested beside a well. Now, I've often wondered about this, and I'm sure there's, extra biblical. There's so many extra biblical books out there, and I've read them, and sometimes you forget. But I've long wondered about this. What is it about Moses that really killing this guard was brought a death sentence onto him. I mean, the thing is that he's like a prince of Pharaoh. He's in the house. If he wanted to, kill a wrongdoer, would he really have been penalized for that? I mean, I'm assuming that Pharaoh and their sons had a lot of divine justice ability to do what they wanted. My point is I can only assume here that there was some friction between him and Pharaoh. Like Pharaoh was like, we need some excuse to get rid of this Hebrew guy. Okay, there it is, right there. Boom, you're gone. Right? We're gonna do. It burdens my heart to have to do this, Moses, but we're gonna have to kill you. I loved you like a son. It happened that the priest of Midian had 7 daughters. Don't you just love that line? It's just like it sounds like I could just picture a Cecil DeMille song, movie. This is like this epic piece. You could see Charlton Heston there going through the desert, and there's these 7 beautiful women just there. Just every man's dream. You're in the middle of the desert. You're dying of thirst. And then you see like a little well and some sheep, and you're like, is this a fantasy? There's just 7 beautiful women just sitting around laughing and giggling, just waiting for a man to come along and save them. And these girls came to draw and fill the watering troughs to give drink to their father's sheep. And then the shepherds came and drove them away, those mean shepherds. So, of course, Mashaha, he's watching these pretty women from a rock. And he wanted to go up and say hi to them. Didn't really know how. Good opportune moment. So Mashaha stood up and delivered them and watered their sheep. I wish Moses would have given us more details on this. We have to leave it up to Cecil B. DeMille to fill in the details. So when they returned to Reuel, their father, he asked, "How is it that you have returned so quickly today?" They answered him, "Mitzrayim protected us from the hand of the shepherds and also drew and gave water to our sheep." Then he replied to his daughters, "Where is he? Why have you left the man there? Invite him and let him eat bread." Then Mashaha began to stay with this man, who gave Zepharaha, or Zipporah, but Zepharaha, his daughter, to him, and she bore a son, and he called his name Gershom. For, he said, "I am a stranger in a foreign land." A long time after these events, the king of Mitzrayim died, but the children of Yasharel were still oppressed in their servitude, and their cries from their slavery reached Al-Hayam. That's always the fun part in the story, when it's like this dark time, and then you hear that line that their cries reach to the heavens, to Al-Hayam, and that's when like hang on to something, right? Because the story is about to get exciting. Al-Hayam therefore remembered his covenant with Abraham and with Yitzchak and with Yaakov. Therefore Al-Hayam looked upon the children of Yasharel, and Al-Hayam revealed himself. Let's see here. This is a long section, the history of Moses in Egypt. I do like this here. In many ways, I do identify, well, in one way, I identify with Moses. Not in many ways. In one way, I identify with Moses, in that you guys have to sit here week after week and watch me butcher these names. And I try. Believe me, I try. People come and leave comments all the time. Noel, like, yeah, great YouTube channel. We just can't watch these videos because you say Yahshua instead of Jesus or something like that. And I tell people, I'm like, well, it's fine. Like, if you want to say Jesus or God or whatever, that's I'm not judging you for that. But we are, a ministry here that is putting out the Paleo Hebrew scripture. So it comes with the territory that I'm trying to pronounce these names. And of course, Moses spoke Paleo. He didn't speak modern Hebrew. But I identify with him because this guy had like some sort of lisp or something. And I can just imagine all the sacred namers of his day just mocking Moses. Like they're like, why am I following this guy? He can't even pronounce the names right. So this is what we read right here about Moses. And Pharaoh sent and called for all the wise men in Mitzrayim, and they came before the king. And an angel of Yahweh came among them, and he was like one of the wise men of Mitzrayim. You guys have heard me talk about this before. Take a mental note of this. Think about this angel in their midst. And now the context here is that Moses is a young boy, and they're trying to decide whether or not they're going to kill him. And the king said to the wise men, "Surely you have heard what this Hebrew boy who is in the house has done. And thus has Balaam judged in the matter." The idea is that he reached for the crown of Pharaoh, right? And so this is leading up to where Pharaoh is finally going to kill him one day, or at least attempt to. "Now judge you also and see what is due to the boy for the act he has committed." And the angel, who seemed like one of the wise men of Pharaoh, think about this, all right? So this angel is not a Hebrew. I mean, it doesn't look like one. He does not look like a Hebrew. He looks like an Egyptian. So you could use this today. He could look like a White House employee. He could look, a council member. He could look like someone from Europe or Africa or Asia, right? He's disguised as one of the Egyptians. He answered and said it as follows: "Before all the wise men of Mitzrayim and before the kings and the princes, if it please the king, let the king send for men who shall bring before him an onyx stone and a coal of fire, and place them before the child." Now we had already been reading about these angels that are coming and giving these two stones, and now he's doing the same thing. There's two of them. "And if the child shall stretch forth his hand and take the onyx stone, then shall we know that with wisdom has the youth done all that he has done, and we must slay him. But if he stretch forth his hand upon the coal, then shall we know that it was not with knowledge that he did this thing, and he shall live." So this angel is already setting it up to make Moses out to be like Columbo. You know what I'm talking about, Columbo? Peter Falk, and he's kind of he's got a little was it 12 o'clock shadow? He made a little mustard on his tie. He got some wrinkles in his coat, and he walks into the room and kind of stubs his foot on the coffee table or something like that. And people are like, "This guy's an idiot." He goes right up to the murderer, and the murderer's like, he just almost gives himself over to this guy, right? And nobody thinks that he could possibly have any wisdom. And then, there's always that last scene. He turns around, "Oh yeah, and one more thing," right? So this angel is setting it up to make Moses out to be a doofus. "If it please the king, let the king send for men who shall bring before the onyx stone." All right. "But if he stretch forth his hand upon the coal, then shall we know that it was not with knowledge that he did this thing, and he shall live. And the king seemed good, and this thing seemed good in the eyes of the king and the princes. So the king did according to the word of the angel of Yahweh. And the king ordered the onyx stone and coal to be brought and placed before Mashahah. And they placed the boy before them, and the lad endeavored to stretch forth his hand to the onyx stone. But the angel of Yahweh took his hand and placed it upon the coal." So this angel who looks like an Egyptian, now he's doing like covert stuff where they're not seeing what the angel is doing in the room. They're not seeing how he is directing the course of events in the favor of Yahweh. "And the coal became extinguished in his hand, and he lifted it up and put it into his mouth and burned part of his lip and part of his tongue, and he became heavy in mouth and in tongue." So imagine having to be called to a ministry where you are to speak to Pharaoh and to the people, and you can imagine why they struggled so much to listen to him. So in a way, he's no like Charlton Heston here, right? He's the guy in the back of the bus. The guy that just he walks into any community, and there's just, not only that, he's an old man. He's like pretty old, like 80 years old when he starts his ministry, and they're like, "What is it, old man?" But I want you to think about this, and I brought this up a lot. This is an amazing example of Yahweh entering the council of kings, bringing one of his messengers, perhaps a Melchizedek priest. I really don't know if this angel is always an angel, or he used to be a man on the earth and ascended, or what. But he is on a mission from the camp. And I think that this happens to this day. I think they are infiltrating all governments. And even though there are evil people in the governments and they mean to do us harm, There are his messengers there. They are working on our behalf. And that's an exciting thought. I think that's a really exciting thought. I believe this still happens to this day. The zeal of Levi, or Levi. So we read that in the Aramaic Targum, when Moses murdered the man, it says, and Moses turned and considered in the wisdom of his mind. Keep in mind that he did have wisdom as a child. We saw that because he reached for the right stone, but the angel turned his hand to make him look stupid. But he had great wisdom. And in the wisdom of his mind, he understood that in no generation would there arise a proselyte from that Mitzrayim man, and that none of his children's children would ever be converted. This is another really interesting point to bring up in the pre-existence debate. And the same thing happened when Cain killed Abel. And it wasn't just that Abel's blood cried out. There seems to be a noted presence there that the many voices that were expected in that blood itself were also crying out. So Yahuwah is looking at the situation going, there is millions and millions of descendants that were expected from Abel, and now they are crying out that their ability to be born through this chain of command is silenced. And so Moses sees something very similar. Like, none of his children's children would ever be converted. So all the line down through history, he has this thought, which is pretty intense. We see some similar stuff happening, though, in the Testament of Levi. He says, for we sinned because we had done this thing against his will. This is the Shechem. So, let me start from the top. And I slew Shechem first, and Simon slew Hamor. And after this, my brothers came and smote the city with the edge of the sword. This is over the rape of Dinah. And my father heard these things and was wroth, and he was grieved in that they had received a circumcision, and after that had been put to death. And in his blessings, he looked amiss upon us. You notice there that the grief wasn't just that they had killed the people, but that they had given them the sign of the covenant first, right? Like, you'll enter into a covenant with us, and then they broke that. For we sinned because we had done this thing against his will, and was sick on that day. But I saw that the sentence of Elohim was for evil upon Shechem. For they sought to do to Sarah and Rivkah as they had done to Dinah, our sister, but Yahuwah prevented them. So you see that with Levi, there's a similar thing happening. And why did I have these? Oh, yeah. Well, we see the same thing happening here with Phinehas, who appears to be an Elijah figure, or Elijah himself. This is when he was given the zeal to slay Balaam. And of course, he was a son of Levi. And the same thing happens in the Maccabean revolt. In those days arose Mattathiah, the son of John, the son of Simeon, a priest of the sons of Jorib from Jerusalem. And he does the same thing. It says, now when he had left speaking these words, there came one of the Jews in the sight of all to sacrifice on the altar, which was at Modin, according to the king's commandment. Which thing, when Mattathiah saw, he was inflamed with zeal, and his reins trembled, neither could he forbear to show his anger according to judgment. Wherefore he ran, and he slew him upon the altar. Also the king's commissioner, who compelled men to sacrifice, he killed at the time, and the altar he pulled down. Speaking of Charlton Heston, here we see him, the man, the myth, the legend, and the rod of Yahuwah. Reading from Jasher, he's at the house of his father-in-law. And it was that while he prayed, he looked opposite to him, and behold, a sapphire stick was placed in the ground, which was planted in the midst of the garden. And he approached the stick, and he looked, and behold, the name of Yahuwah Elohim Sevaoth was engraved thereon, written and developed upon the stick. And he read it and stretched forth his hand, and he plucked it like a forest tree from the thicket, and the stick was in his hand. And this is the stick with which all the works of our Elohim are performed. after he had created heaven and earth and all the hosts of them, seas, rivers, and all their fishes. So according to this, the rod that Moses had was the very one that when they say Ar Elohim, they're talking about Yahuwah here. When Yahuwah, of course, who I believe is Yahshua Messiah, when he's going around with authority and either creating the world, replenishing the world, assigning things their authority, could be another way of looking at it, just as Adam gave, authority and names to different animals. Same thing, right? This is the rod that he's holding out. This is the rod that he created the world with, and I believe it is the rod that is in his possession now, in which we will have to pass under when we go into the blessed realm. And when Reuel saw the stick in the hand of Moses, he wondered at it, and he gave him his daughter Zipporah for a woman. That comes from Yashar 77. Here's from the Legends of the Jews, Volume 2. One of the 7 maidens whom Moses saw at the well attracted his notice, in particular on account of her modest demeanor, and he made her a proposal of marriage. But Zipporah repulsed him, saying, "My father has a tree in his garden with which he tests every man that expresses a desire to marry one of his daughters, and as soon as the suitor touches the tree, he is devoured by it." Now, why would her father have one of these, the rod of Yahuwah? Well, he was a priest of Midian, and I think it goes back to Abimelech. I think he is a descendant of Abimelech, and Abimelech was, of course, a Melchizedek priest. Now, at this point in time, how much of the Melchizedek was he still practicing? That's, I guess, the question of the hour, isn't it? Moses says, "Whence has he the tree?" Zipporah says, "It is the rod that the Holy One, blessed be he, created in the twilight of the first Sabbath eve and gave to Adam. He transmitted it to Enoch. From him it descended to Noah, then to Shem and Abraham and Isaac, and finally to Jacob, who brought it with him to Egypt and gave it to his son Joseph. When Joseph died, the Egyptians pillaged his house, and the rod, which was in their booty, they brought it to Pharaoh's palace. At that time, my father was one of the most prominent of the king's sacred scribes, and as such, he had the opportunity of seeing the rod. He felt a great desire to possess it, and he stole it and took it to his house. On this rod, the ineffable name is graven, and also the 10 plagues that God will cause to visit the Egyptians in a future day. For many years, it lay in my father's house. One day he was walking in his garden carrying it. He struck it in the ground. When he attempted to draw out again, he found that it had sprouted and was putting forth blossoms." Something else to note there about the blossoming. "That is the rod with which he tries any that desires to marry his daughters. He insists that our suitor shall attempt to pull it out of the ground, but as soon as they touch it, it devours them." Apparently, this guy really doesn't want to marry his daughters off very, very well. Jonathan Targum, Exodus 14:21 says this, "And Moshe stretched out his hand over the sea with the great and glorious rod." We'll get to this in about 2 weeks' time, or 3 weeks' time. Which was created at the beginning, and on which were engraven and set forth the great and glorious name, and the 10 signs which had smitten the misery, and the 3 fathers of the world, and the 6 mothers, and the 12 tribes of Yaakov. Now, if you're confused about the 3 fathers and the 6 mothers of the world, that's talking about Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. And of course, Yaakov had 4 women. Israel had 4 mommies, and of course, there's Sarah, and there's Rivka. So just so you guys all know that. "And straightway Yahweh brought a vehement east wind upon the sea all night, and made the sea dry, and divided the waters into 12 divisions according to the 12 tribes of Yaakov." We'll get there. Okay, we just read that. All right, and then of course we see that this staff apparently may have been. This could have been the staff that Yehuda gave to Tamar as payment in advance on the night that he slept with her. He gets it back. But then we get this here in the Book of Britain, 1:9. Guys, I did work in Wales this last year, and I have yet to give a report on it. I feel bad. I've been so busy with all the other work I'm doing for the ministry. One of these days, I want to get an entire report worked up as a kind of a spinoff on my Camelot research and my rod of Yahweh research and show why the Isle of Anglesey is the historical island of Avalon. Like it wasn't just a mythical island, it was a historical island until it finally became a myth. And it was the capital of the Druidic Empire. I mean, it's not Glastonbury. And it was the island furthest west where the spirits of the dead souls would literally travel to and depart into either the north or the west from there on the ships. So anyways, this is where Joseph of Arimathea ends up. He plants his church. I got to go to the actual place where Stephen Pidgeon had basically directed in his research, where the Virgin Mary, you guys know what I mean by Virgin Mary, where she was buried. I got to go to the actual gravesite. That was pretty cool. And then where the shipborne wanderer is given land over from the Isle of Departure, saying that could they live where no one else could because of the spirits. So the Druidic king is like, okay, I'm gonna put you into the actual realm where the spiritual meets the physical, where the dead spirits go before they depart. Nobody can go there. They will torment you. They will kill you. Then their holiness would be established before all the people. The strangers were sorely tried by the Druids, but the spirits troubled them not, nor did the sickness of the place come upon them, and the people wondered. You can see a picture here where he has a staff, Joseph of Arimathea, as he's speaking to the people of Britain, and this is the staff. So the first convert of Joseph of Arimathea, who's also known as Iliad, was a woman named Islas, was the first convert. And it is said that she alone knew the secret of the holy hawthorn. I also went and investigated the holy hawthorn trees there. Unfortunately, what is up with the Brits? They protest the government. They go chop down the old trees. They went and chopped down the tree. It was kind of sad. What this may be, none can know now. It is said that when the Druthan murmured against the staff of Joseph of Arimathea, she placed a twig in water and it flowered. So we see the same thing happening with, just like Aaron with his rod. The staff is still flowering. In Revelation, it says that out of his mouth goes a sharp sword, that with it he should smite the nations, and he shall rule them with a rod of iron. Now, is this it's close but no cigar, maybe, right? Because it's like a sapphire stick, but then it's like a rod of iron. When we see all in this medieval artwork, they're really big on showing him with this staff, this rod that has the tav on it. Many times you'll see the ensign of St. George flapping from it, who, of course, I made the connection to St. George is Elijah. Picture after picture, he's coming out of the tomb, which is the same thing that we see and notice how in a lot of these depictions, there are some he's coming out of a cave, but in most of them, he's coming up out of the ground, which is a very different way than is depicted with, like, say, the garden tomb today. In the Gospel of Peter, it talks about how when he comes out, there's two men on each side that are supporting him. And it says, and a cross following them. And this cross, it speaks, so people will mock this. And there's this voice, the Holy Spirit, the Mother from heaven. She says, "You have preached to them that sleep." And a response was heard from the cross, this rod that came out, yea. We, of course, see the same depiction of the rod going down with him into Sheol. So here he is. He really is a Moses character. I mean, and again, I think this is the same rod of Moses. Same way Moses went into Egypt and he went to the Red Sea and he parted the waters. The same thing. He's going down to Sheol with this rod. He's carrying on business. He's like slaying this demon right here, like sticking in its mouth, giving it some dental work. Stepping on this one here. Of course, one of my all-time favorites is, I don't have it, where he actually impales a demon with it. It's pretty good stuff. And of course, this is where I believe that the blessed realm is in our greater realm, which is, of course, on the moon map. You guys all know this. If you don't, please get caught up on this. What has been titled by some of the researchers, Terra Vista. The red lines over there is our side of the realm where the sun and the moon goes around. So the sun and the moon does not go around over here. There would be a light over on this side, which can only be experienced if you're there. And it says in Ezekiel 20:33, speaking of this land, as I live, declares Yahweh Elohim, surely with a mighty hand and an outstretched arm and with wrath poured out, I will be king over you. I will bring you out from the peoples and gather you out of the countries where you are scattered. And with a mighty hand and an outstretched arm and with wrath poured out, this is what we would refer to as the second Exodus account. You see this discussed a lot in Torah circles. To each their own. If you believe that there is going to be a coming second Exodus, so be it. This is it. Right here, you're looking at the pictures, guys. This was the second Exodus. I'm not doing a study on the second Exodus tonight. Maybe I will next week when we talk about Passover. But one of the descriptions of it is that it would be an event that was so amazing that you couldn't really talk about the first Exodus in comparison. The first Passover event. And so a lot of people are like, well, what could that possibly be? Well, it's been in our face the whole time. It's the death, the crucifixion and resurrection of Messiah. Like, that is the event that has been talked about all over the world for the last 2,000 years. We're like, I wonder what could be the events of the second Exodus, Well, that was it right there. And this is what happened. And they were brought over with his rod to paradise. It could be in heaven, but I think it's, of course, terrestrial paradise over here. And it says this, and I will bring you into the wilderness of the people. There's the hidden wilderness term right there. And there I will enter into judgment with you face to face. As I entered into judgment with your fathers in the wilderness in the land of Mitzrayim, so I will enter into judgment with you, declares Yahweh Elohim. And this is an interesting way that he does the judgment here. He says, I will make you pass under the rod, and I will bring you into the bond of the covenant. So, as I've stated many times, I think I really appreciate this idea of offering a red and a blue pill. You have to give people that opportunity. And you kind of have to maybe be okay with people saying, I don't want the red pill. I want the blue pill. And you're like, okay, that's what you wanted. There you go. There you have it. So here he's going to hold over this rod, and he's going to be like, okay, here's the covenant. Like, you want to come into this land, you're going to pass under this rod, and you're going to agree to keep this covenant. There could be a lot of Christians that be like, man, I was lied to, and I was told that this covenant is no longer binding. And Yahshua will be like, okay, well, you were lied to about that, but now you can make this choice. You're going to keep it or not. I think there's going to be a lot of Christians that go like, yeah, I totally, like, I'm awesome. And they're going to pass under. And there's going to be others that might go, yeah, not really interested in doing that. Who knows? I mean, there could be like kind of another pastor to the left or the right or whatever. And maybe it's not as nice, but they'll be like, yeah, I'll take that over there. I don't really know. And I don't really know exactly all that's going to happen. But it seems like there's a possibility being set up here that a lot of people are going to choose not to pass under this rod, under his authority. All right, moving on to the revelation in the burning bush. Hope you guys are all doing well tonight. Oh my goodness, we're not going to make it. I just looked at the time. We're not going to make it, but we're going to go as far as we can. Mashaha, however, was shepherding the sheep of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian, and he had led the sheep to the far side of the desert and came to the mountain of Elohim in Harabaha, where Malach, Yahweh, the ever-living, appeared unto him in a flame of fire in the place of the thorn. When he looked, he observed that the place of the thorn burned with fire, yet the place of the thorn was not consumed. Then Meshach declared, I will draw near and examine the great wonder, why the place of the thorn is not burnt up. But Yahweh saw that he approached to examine it, so Ha-Elohim called out to him from the midst of the place of the thorn and said, Mashaha, Mashaha. And he answered, I am here. And that's another, of course, passage. Whenever you see him call out the name of a person, and maybe twice or more for emphasis, and you say, I am here, or here I am, watch out, because you're about to go on a mission. Then he said, approach not, put off your shoes from your feet, for the place upon which you stand is Kudash. Then he continued, I am Allahaya of your father, the Allahaya of Abraham, the Allahaya of Yitzchak, the Allahaya of Yaakov. The Messiah hid his face, for he feared to gaze upon Ha-Allahayam. Yahweh then said, I have seen the suffering of my people who are in Mitzrayim, and I have heard their shrieks before their drivers, and I have understood their sorrows. And I have come down to deliver them from the hand of Mitzrayim, and to take them up from the country to a good land and a spacious, to a land flowing with milk and honey, to replace the Canaanite and the Hathuya and the Amoreah and the Pharisee and the who are these? The Hawaya and the Yabawasaya. Let's see, where are these people on here? These would be the Hittites, the Amorites, and the Perizzites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites. For the cries of the children of Yasharel have now come to me, and I have seen the oppression with which the Mitzrayah oppress them. Therefore you must go, and I will send you to Pharaoh to bring my people, the children of Yasharel, up from among Mitzrayim. But Meshach replied to Ha-Allahayam, who am I that I should go to Pharaoh, and that I should lead the children of Yasharel up from the midst of Mitzrayim? And he answered, however, because I will be with you. Therefore go, for I have sent you to lead the people from Mitzrayim, and they shall serve Ha-Allahayam upon this mountain. Then Meshach said to Ha-Allahayam, supposing I should go to the children of Yasharel and should say to them, the Allahaya of your fathers has sent me to you, and they should ask me, what is his name? That's a good question. What am I to say to them? Because, of course, there's many gods in Egypt, right? And Allahayam declared unto Al-Mashah, Allah, Aha Yaha, Ashar, Aha Yaha, which means, roughly translated, I will exist because I will exist. Once again, that's Aha Yaha, Ashar, Aha Yaha. I will exist because I will exist. Like this, therefore, you shall say, Aha Yaha has sent me to you. And Allahayam further spoke to Meshach, you shall say thus to the children of Yasharel, Yahweh, the ever-living Allahaya of your forefathers, the Allahaya of Abraham, the Allahaya of Yitzchak, and the Allahaya of Yaakov has sent me to you. This is my name to time of long duration, and I remember this from age to age. Go and assemble the chiefs of Yasharel and say to them, Yahweh, the ever-living Allahaya of your fathers, has appeared to me, the Allahaya of Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. And he declared, I have visited you, and I will save you from the Mitzrayah. How much you want to take bets that the elders aren't going to be that interested in his message? They'll be like, that's nice, old man. Therefore, I command you to go from among the Mitzrayah to the land of Canaan, and the Hathuya, and the Amoreah, and the Pharisee, and the Hawaya, and the Jebusites, to the land flowing with milk and honey. And they will listen to your voice. Then go, you and the chiefs of Yasharel, to the king of Mitzrayim, and say to him, Yahweh, the ever-living Allahaya of your servants, has commanded us. Therefore, we pray, let us go a 3 days' journey into the Madabar, and offer sacrifices to Yahweh, our ever-living Allahaya. But I know that the king of Mitzrayim will not permit you to go except by a strong hand. Consequently, I shall stretch out my hand and strike the Mitzrayim with all the wonders that I will do within their bounds, and afterwards he will send you away. Then I will give the people favor in the eyes of the Mitzrayim, so that it shall be when they walk, they shall not walk unprovided. But every woman shall demand of her neighbor and from the guest in her house ornaments of silver and ornaments of gold and clothing, and put them upon her sons and daughters, and shall strip the Mitzrayim. I almost feel like that's the sign of when the Hebrews finally get it. So he would have gone to the elders and said, oh, by the way, because the elders might have even, I don't know if they laughed at him or what, they're like, that's nice. Yeah, we're not really interested. But Moses is like, oh, believe me, before this is over, your wives are going to get, like, they're going to clean out the jewelry and all the gold and stuff from their neighbors' wives. And I don't know, maybe they laughed, whatever. They went back to, can you believe this Moses guy? They're telling their wife now. He says that you're going to go get like all the jewelry of our neighbors, stuff like that. And this is like the moment when they actually do it, where they're like, they get it. Like they understood, oh, okay. Moses' words really are coming true. Chapter 4. Then Mashaha answered and said, but they may not trust me and not listen to my voice. For they may say, we have never observed Yahuwah, the ever-living, your Allahayam. Allahayam, however, asked him, what is in your hand? And he replied, a stick. And isn't that a great question? Like, assuming that this is legitimate, that this is the actual rod that Yahuwah created the world with. And he's like, what's that stick you got there, Moses? And he then commanded, throw it to the ground. So he threw it on the ground, and it became a nakash, which would be a serpent. And Mashah fled from before it, but a great scene. I mean, I would flee from it too. If I saw, I hate snakes to death. I still, to this day, I cannot leave my house. I don't go outside without kind of scanning around for snakes, because they'll be there. They could be there on the porch, all curled up, and just don't like snakes. But Yahuwah, the ever-living, said to Mashah, stretch out your hand and seize it by the tail. So he stretched out his hand and seized it, and it became a stick in his hand. Be certain they will believe because of that Yahuwah, the ever-living, Allahayah of their fathers appeared to you, the Allahayah of Abraham, the Allahayah of Yitzchak, and the Allahayah of Yaakov. Now, pay attention to what just happened there, because when we get to the actual incident, when he throws the stick down in front of Pharaoh, it is no longer a nakash. Now, I know that most translations will say that, but it becomes something different, which is much greater than what just happened here. And Yahuwah, the ever-living, continued speaking to him, put your hand now into your bosom. And he put his hand into his bosom, and when he lifted out, behold, his hand was struck with leprosy, as white as snow. And he commanded, put again your hand into bosom again. So he replaced his hand in his bosom and took it out again from his bosom, and it returned like his other flesh. And it shall be, if they will not trust you and not listen to your voice at the first evidence, yet they will trust to your voice after the second sign. But if they do not trust you, even for the second evidence, and do not listen to your voice, then take some of the water from the river and pour it out on the dry land, and there the water which you have taken from the river shall become blood on the dry ground. Mashah, however, replied to Yahuwah, the ever-living, but yet, Adunuya, I am not an eloquent man. I have not been so in the past, nor in this speaking between you and your servant, for I am slow of mouth, difficult to speak, and heavy of tongue, difficult to understand. But Yahuwah, the ever-living, replied to him, who gave a mouth to man, or who makes dumb or deaf, or blind or seeing? It is not I, Yahuwah, the living one. So now go, and I will be your mouth and show you what you shall say. That just gets me every time. That's amazing. Doesn't mean that he's good. I mean, it doesn't mean that he's going to have success, right? I mean, technically, Moses doesn't have success. Like, he goes and speaks to the elders, not really interested. He goes speak to Pharaoh, not really interested. That's a lot of defeat right there, isn't it? And so it's like Yahuwah is choosing somebody who can't speak. And I know he has Aaron speak for him. But it's like, okay, they're going to reject you, and I'm still going to do this anyways. That's the exciting part. But he answered, indeed, my Adon, send, I pray you, by some other hand. Then Yahuwah, the ever-living, was angry with Mashah, and he said, have you not a brother, Aaron, the Levite? I know that he can talk. He is even now coming to seek you. See that you can go cheerfully with him and speak to him and put words into his mouth, for I will be your mouth and in his mouth, and will show you what you are to do. And he shall speak for you to the people. He shall be like a mouth for you, and you shall be to him of Allahayam. And that staff, take it in your hand, for you shall perform wonders with it. Mashah therefore went and returned to Yather, his father-in-law, and said to him, or Jethro, I wish to go now and rejoin my relatives who are in Mitzrayim, and I will see if they are alive. And Yather said to Mashah, walk to Shalawam, which means, in Pamela's notes, the word Shalawam has a great depth of meaning: wholeness, health, prosperity, peace. Since in those times lacking in warfare, one's personal affairs are safe and sound, or friendship. Yahuwah, the ever-living, afterwards said to Meshaha, walk, turn back to Mitzrayim, for all the men are dead who were searching for your Nephash. Then Meshaha took his wife and his sons and made them ride upon asses, and he turned back into the hand of Mitzrayim. Meshaha also took the rod of Ha-Alahayam in his hand. Yahuwah, the ever-living, also said to Meshaha, in your walking to turn back to Mitzrayim, regard all the wonders which I place in your hand, and you will do them before the face of Pharaoh. But I shall make strong his heart, and he will not let the people go. And you shall declare to Pharaoh, thus says Yahuwah, the ever-living, Yasharel is my firstborn son, and I say to you, allow my son to go that he may serve me. And if you refuse him, then I will slay your firstborn son. But while he was upon the... Now, okay, this is something we could all discuss. This would be a great panel discussion about what is a firstborn son. And keep in mind that Yaakov was not the firstborn son, but he became Yashua. He was the secondborn, Esau, right? And so what is the meaning in that? Is it possible that firstborn son doesn't necessarily mean the firstborn? Like, I am a secondborn son myself, and no judgment on any of my family or siblings. I don't even know where they're all at in life right now. But I do believe that Yah chose me for this ministry. And is it possible that even though I'm the secondborn and, I'm not under that, according to my parents, they look at me as the secondborn, right? I'm not the firstborn, but according to Yah, maybe I am. Or is this something that maybe goes into pre-existence, and the people of the true Israelites, you and me, if we are in Israel, if we are Hebrews, were we the firstborn at the beginning of the world? That's another thought I have. But while he was upon the road at a resting place, Yahuwah encountered him, and he searched out to kill him. Well, that changed really quickly. One moment he's like, go to Egypt and do this. And, oh, by the way, I'm going to meet you on the road. I'm going to kill you. But Zipporah, or Zepharaha, took a sharp stone, and she cut the foreskin of her son, and she cast it to his feet. Amazing that she knew to do this. Like, she knew there was some connection. She knew that, probably a discussion that she was having with Moses, and Moses didn't do his duty for whatever reason to circumcise his son. And she declared, for a bloody bridegroom you are to me. So he let fall his hand from him. Then she said, a bloody husband you are because of the circumcision. Now Yahuwah, the ever-living, had said to Aaron, walk into the wilderness to meet Meshaha. So he went and met him at the mount of Ha-Alahayam, and he kissed him. Then Meshaha related to Aaron all the instructions of Yahuwah, the ever-living, which he had sent to him, and he did the signs which he commanded. Then Meshaha walked, and Aaron, and they gathered all the bearded ones of Yasharel. And Aaron repeated all the matters which Yahuwah, the ever-living, had spoken to Meshaha, and he produced the signs before the eyes of the people, and the people supported, and they acknowledged that Yahuwah, the ever-living, had visited the sons of Yasharel, and that he had observed their affliction, and they bowed the head, and they prostrated themselves to do homage. The Meshaha and Aaron went and said to Pharaoh, thus says Yahuwah, the ever-living, Alahaya of Yasharel, send out my people that they may hold a feast to me in the wilderness. But Pharaoh replied, who is Yahuwah, the ever-living, that I should listen to his voice to send out Yasharel? I know not Yahuwah, and also I will not send away Yasharel. And they, however, replied, the Alahaya of the Hebrews has summoned us. Allow us to walk 3 days into the wilderness, and we will sacrifice to Yahuwah, the ever-living, our Alahaya, for fear he will reach us with an epidemic or lay us waste. And the Malak of Mitzrayim said to them, why will you, Meshaha and Aaron, lose the people from their work? Walk yourselves to your burdens. And, Pharaoh went on to declare, the people are now too many for the land, yet you would take them away from their burdens. Pharaoh in that day commanded the pushers over the people and the overseers, saying, You shall not again give straw to these people for the bricks they fashion as you have before, but let them walk in, and they can collect straw for themselves. Yet the sum of bricks which they had to make previously, you will place upon them. You will not take away from them, given they are idle. Therefore they call out, we will walk, we will sacrifice unto our Allahiyah. Make heavier the work upon these men, and make them work to accomplish it, and do not listen to deceptive speeches. Essentially how he's trying to turn it around. I guess I'm assuming here he's making out like Moses, has the deceptive speeches. The pushers and the overseers of the people consequently went and reported to the people, saying thus, Pharaoh has ordered us to no longer give you straw. Therefore, walk, collect straw for yourselves wherever you can find it, for there is to be no lessening of your labors whatsoever. On that account, the people were scattered all over the land of Mitzrayim to seek chaff instead of straw. Yet the pushers compelled them, saying, complete your appointed labors day by day in the production of bricks. And the overseers who were set in place over the sons of Yasharel were attacked by the pushers of Pharaoh, who demanded, why have you not completed your custom to make bricks both yesterday and today like before? And the overseers of the sons of Yasharel appealed unto Pharaoh, asking, why have you done this to your slaves? No straw was given to your slaves, yet they say to us, make the bricks. And your slaves are attacked and your people injured. So this is what I was talking about here, where, they're not really listening to Moses. I mean, it kind of made it out like, yeah, they bowed down, whatever you say, Moses, but they're thinking in their mind, they're thinking of the glory of Yahuwah here, that he's just like, this is it. He's just going to bring them out, right? And I think Moses explained the whole situation. I think he explained, like, look, like what don't you understand about Pharaoh's heart being hardened here? Because he's not going to listen to anything I have to say. And if he's not listening, why is he going to make it any easier on you guys? And maybe they're getting it now. And they're like, yeah, I'm sorry we listened to you, dude. I don't really know. I wasn't there for the whole conversation. Why have you done this to your slaves? No straw was given to us. Got to do all the work. And he, however, replied, you are idle. You are idle. It is on this account that you say we will walk and sacrifice to Yahuwah, the ever living. So now walk. Serve him, and no straw shall he give you, and you shall give the measured number of bricks. Consequently, the overseers of the sons of Yasharel saw they were in a bad position when he said, you shall not diminish from the number of bricks day by day. So they assailed Meshach and Aaron for inciting them to walk, to present themselves to Pharaoh, and said to them, may Yahuwah the ever-living look upon you and decide how you have made our aroma stink in the eyes of Pharaoh and in the eyes of the servants, to give a sword in their hands to slay us. Isn't that cute how they're trying to turn around Moses' God onto him? The Meshach turned back to Yahuwah, the ever-living, and said, Adonai, why have you caused suffering to this people? And why have you sent me thus? And why did you send me to Pharaoh, saying, I will take this people from their affliction, when you have not delivered them? Man, I wish I could, I am so feeling this right now. Beforehand, when I talked to my group, if you were there for the Friday night, man, I went through the same thing. Like, why is it, Yah, that you have directed me and it pointed me in this direction, and it, with this initiative, this mission, and it's not turning out the way that at least I was imagining it in my mind. Then Yahuwah, the ever-living, replied to Meshach, now you shall observe what I will fashion for Pharaoh, so that with a strong hand he shall send them, and with a strong hand he will cast them from his land. All right, this comes from Yasher. Let's go ahead and skip that. All right, let's get right into, we're going to try to cut right through this, through the next Torah portion, through this week's actually. So we're actually caught up to speed right now. And here we go. Yahuwah once again reveals his name to Meshach. And Allahayam, he will debar, he will set matters in order. He guided Meshach consolingly, and he will declare toward him, I, Yahuwah the ever-living, and I will allow myself to be seen by Al Abraham, Al Yitzchak, and Al Yaakov, and Al Shaddai. And by my name, Yahuwah, the ever-living, I was not discovered by them. This is a very interesting exchange, a contrast comparison with these names. He's saying, I've got two names, Al Shaddai and Yahuwah. A lot of, and that your forefathers, Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, did not know me by the name of Yahuwah. Now, I have seen people take that and say that they literally did not know the pronunciation of the name. That is not true. I don't think that's what he's saying there. And this is one of the point of contention that's come up with other books like, say, the Writings of Abraham, where he's known as Yahuwah throughout. And it's like, well, why was Abraham calling him that if it says right there that he didn't know by that name? That's not what he's saying. In fact, we see Yahuwah all through, Genesis before this. He's saying that they knew me by the qualities, the character quality of Al Shaddai or El Shaddai. But you, Moses, are about to see me by the qualities of Yahuwah that they have not experienced before. This is an interesting thing happening here because the Egyptians, they're not going to know him by Yahuwah. They're going to know him by El Shaddai, the destroyer. We could look at El Shaddai might mean other things. But next week, when I take you back to the Colburn account again, you're going to see that they only knew him as the destroyer, which is how Abraham knew him. How did he know him as the destroyer? Well, Sodom and Gomorrah, right? He saw the character quality of El Shaddai coming in and just destroying this huge swath of land. Like I showed you in the maps, it's huge, this huge chunk that goes north of Jerusalem, south all the way to the border, down to the, basically the Red Sea down there. In addition, as a sign of my arising, I established my covenant with them to give to them the land of Canaan, the Arats of their sojournings, in which they were strangers. I have also heard the crying out of the sons of Yasharel, who were made to serve them, and I called to mind my covenant. Therefore, say to the sons of Yasharel, Yahuwah the ever-living will cause you to come out from among the burden bearing of Mitzrayim, and I will deliver you from your slavery and will redeem you with a directing arm and with great judgments. And I will take you to myself for a people and will be your Elohiah. And you shall know that I, Yahuwah, the ever-living, your Elohiah, have brought you out from among the burden bearing of the Mitzrayim. And that is it right there, right? For the Egyptians, he's going to be El Shaddai. For Moses and Israel, he's going to be Yahuwah. And they're going to see like the character quality in the name when he delivers them through the Red Sea. I will also bring you to the land which I raised my hand to give to Abraham and to Yitzchak and to Yaakov, and grant to you its possession. I, Yahuwah, the ever-living. Consequently, Meshachah repeated this to the sons of Yasharel, but they would not listen to Meshachah for their anguish of Ruach and from their hard slavery. It's kind of interesting, right? I mean, you got to offer the red and blue pill, but think about that. Like if we are in the wilderness right now, figuratively and maybe more figuratively than literally, but in some ways very literally too. Like, if we have stopped going to, say, Sunday church, brick and mortar churches, right? Because they're no longer spiritually feeding us. And we're out in the wilderness and we're trying to tell other people to come out to the wilderness and learn from Yahuwah. This is the season right now where he is teaching and instructing us out here. And they're just like, they're still slaves. And they're like, yeah, I'm not doing what you're doing at all. It's easier for me to stay in this routine and keep doing this than to do whatever crazy thing you're doing. Yahuwah, the ever-living, again spoke to Meshachah, saying, enter in and set matters in order unto Al Pharaoh, Malak of Mitzrayim, that he must dismiss the sons of Yasharel from his land. But Meshachah replied to the face of Yahuwah, the ever-living, to declare, the sons of Yasharel themselves would not listen to me. So indeed, Pharaoh will not listen to me, since I am dull of speech. Yahuwah, the ever-living, however, commanded unto Meshachah and to Aaron again, and sent them unto the sons of Yasharel, and unto Pharaoh, Malak of Mitzrayim, to demand the release of the sons of Yasharel from the land of Mitzrayim. These are the heads of the ancestral houses of the sons of Reuben. Okay, I'm going to, just for everyone's sake, you could see over here the Paleo. I'm going to read through the English over here just to get through these names. I got to actually scan up for this, don't I? The sons of Reuben, the firstborn of Israel, are Hanok and Palu, Hezron and Carmi. These be the families of Reuben. And the sons of Simeon are Jemuel and Jamin and Ohad and Jachin and Zohar and Shaul, the sons of a Canaanitish woman. These are the families of Simeon. And these are the names of the sons of Levi according to their generations, Gershon and Kohath and Merari. And the years of the life of Levi were 137 years. Wouldn't that be exciting to be like this generation and like you're one of these elders and your name is put in here? The sons of Gershon were Libni and Shimi according to their families. And the sons of Kohath, Amram and Izhar and Hebron and Uzziel. And the year of the life of Kohath were 133 years. And the sons of Merari were Mahali and Mushi. These are the families of Levi according to their generations. And Amram took Jochebed, his father's sister, to wife. This would be Moses' parents. And she bare him Aaron and Moses. Isn't it interesting, too? Because I noticed that Moses did not mention the name of his parents before this. So he's saving it now for this. I don't know why he made that decision. And the years of the life of Amram were 137 years. And the sons of Izhar were Korah and Nepheg and Zikri. Remember that Korah guy? Oof, that guy was trouble. And the sons of Uzziel were Mishael and Elsaphon and Zithri. And Aaron took him Elisheba, daughter of Aminadab, sister of Nashon, to wife. And she bare him Nadab and Abihu, Eleazar and Ithamar. And the sons of Korah were Asher and Elkanah and Abiasaph. These are the families of the Korhites. And Eleazar, Aaron's son, took him one of the daughters of Putiel to wife, and she bare him Phinehas. These are the heads of the fathers of the Levites according to their families. Thus Yahweh the ever-living spoke to Aaron and Mishahah to lead the sons of Yasharel out of the land of Mitzrayim by their tribes. These are the Dabarayam, which Mishahah and Aaron spoke toward Pharaoh, Malak of Mitzrayim, for him to send forth the sons of Yasharel from Mitzrayim. Yahweh the ever-living was speaking day after day to Mishahah in the land of the Mitzrayim. Thus Yahweh set words in array to Mishahah, saying, I am Yahweh the ever-living. Speak to Pharaoh, Malak of Mitzrayim, all that I command you. But Mishahah replied in the face of Yahweh the ever-living, I am only slow of tongue. Pharaoh will not listen to me. One of the most beautiful things when we finish the Torah portions every year is we end it with the death of Moses. And he ends Deuteronomy with one of the most beautiful songs that he sung. And, I think he probably, overcame a lot of this speech impediment through the years. Anyways, we'll get there in about, 6 or 7 months' time. So 2 names, 2 meanings, the duality of Elohim. Pamela probably knew I was doing this when I was grilling her online this week, actually earlier today on this topic. And this is actually what she wrote down, and I just kind of copied and pasted it because I was asking her about the names. And she said the name Yahweh literally means he will breathe. To an ancient Hebrew, it meant he will live, or he has life, as in John 5:26. So remember this now, that this is how the Hebrews would know their God going forward. He will breathe, he will live, he has life. This is what they're about to experience with their baptism and the resurrection through the Red Sea. So someone who is self-existing or ever living. Acts 2:24, it was impossible for death to hold him because he had life inside of him. And she's making the connection, just like with John, that Yahweh and Yahshua are the same. Al Shaddai, on the other hand, is a scarier name. It means all-powerful or almighty, but the essence means to deal violently with, to lay waste, or to harrow, as in harrow a field. If Abraham and his descendants knew him as Al Shaddai, it could mean that this facet of his character is what they focused on. He could be saying there was a lot of fear in their worship. Can you imagine the effect the destruction of Sodom had on those who survived, on Abraham and his servants? Really, all the people of the land. He literally laid the place waste, but nothing was left. So just as the cloud was light to the Hebrews and darkness to the Egyptians, there's that duality, right? The darkness is El Shaddai. Yah is life to the obedient Hebrews and destruction to the disobedient Egyptians. That was just written by Pamela, and it's just a transfer and exchange online today. Really, she listed that out really beautifully. All right, chapter 7. We're actually doing good on time. I think we're going to do this. Thank you all for being here with me. Yahuwah, the ever-living, however, answered Meshaha, behold, I will gift you as Allahayam unto Pharaoh, and Aaron your brother. He shall exist your prophet. Therefore you must speak all that I command you to your brother, and he shall repeat to Pharaoh that he must send forth the sons of Yasharel from his land. But I will make Pharaoh's heart obstinate, and I will multiply my evidences and my wonders in the hand of Mitzrayim. I think he keeps saying what Moses doesn't want to hear. Like I think Moses, I think is like just a human element here. I've been in the ministry long enough that I think I know what's going on. And Moses is like, look, I am willing to be your messenger. I'm going to be your servant. I will do what you ask. And Yahweh is like, thank you for that. But I'm going to keep reminding you that it's not going to go the way you think it's going to go. Like, I'm going to get all glory in the end, but it's going to get dark, Moses. And you want to just go up to Pharaoh. I have to keep telling you, like, Pharaoh's not going to listen to you. You're going in there hopeful that you're going to give him this message. Because I don't think Moses was going in there like, oh, Pharaoh, let my people go. You know, oh yeah, of course you rejected, of course. You know, like I think he's really, like, he really believes, like, he wants to go in there and get Pharaoh, like, let my people go, and he's giving him a convincing argument. And Yahuwah is like, I'm telling you, Moses, I'm just telling you what's going to happen here, okay? My evidences and my wonders in the land of Mitzrayim, but Pharaoh will not hear and obey unto you. So I will lay my hand upon the Mitzrayim and will bring up my people, the sons of Yasharel, from the land of Mitzrayim with great judgments, so that the Mitzrayim will intimately and completely know that I am Yahuwah the ever-living, when I stretched out my hand over the Mitzrayim and bring up the sons of Yasharel from among them. So Meshaha and Aaron fashioned like that which Yahuwah the ever-living had commanded them. In that manner they did it. But Meshaha was 80 years old and Aaron 86 years old when they spoke to Pharaoh. Thus Yahuwah the ever-living spoke to Meshaha and to Aaron, saying, since Pharaoh has said to you, give us evidence, instruct Aaron, take your branch before Pharaoh and before his ministers, and he will exist of Thunuyan. So this is the word in the Paleo for a dragon or sea monster. This is often, what does it say over here? It says in the KJV a serpent, right? So we normally take this to be a snake. Now it's interesting because this is what I said to you earlier tonight at Mount Sinai. He threw it down and became a Nakash. It became a serpent. But here now it's becoming something greater than just a snake. It is becoming a dragon creature, or it could be like a sea serpent, Leviathan type of creature. Meshaha and Aaron therefore went to Pharaoh and did as Yahuwah the ever-living commanded, and he cast down his branch to the face of Pharaoh and to the face of his ministers, and he will exist of Thunuyan. Again, it was a dragon. But Pharaoh summoned the wise men and enchanters, and they, the sacred scribes, fashioned a flaming metal rod. And he cast down every man his rod, and they existed of dragons. But Aaron's branch devoured their rods. However, the heart of Pharaoh was strong, and he would not listen to them, just as Yahuwah the ever-living had foretold. So what's interesting here is that there is another connection with Excalibur and the rod of Yahuwah. And you guys know I've made a case on this, that, you know, I do think that there was an actual sword, very likely, you know, a type of Excalibur sword. And in the ancient world, you see a lot of weapons that are given powers of the gods. So I don't have a problem with that there. But the rod itself, you see with Pendragon, when I was in Wales, and this is what part of the report I want to give, I actually went to the actual place where Merlin prophesied over what we know as the Millennial Kingdom, when the white dragon would conquer the red dragon and Camelot would come to an end. And then there would be this time of the Anglo-Saxons where they would build, castles and walls and gardens. And then it was prophesied when the red dragon comes back that they would pull down those walls and those gardens, which happened with King Henry VIII, or the House of the Tudors, 1,000 years later. So I actually went to that actual place, and I investigated a lot of the places that were the two dragons were actually fighting underground. And you see something very similar happening here. And again, it's with the rod. So I don't think that's a coincidence at all. Yahweh, the ever-living, then declared unto Meshaha, the heart of Pharaoh is not easily moved to allow the people to depart. Confront Pharaoh in daybreak. Behold, he rises up to bathe, and you will stand opposite to meet him at the edge of the river. When he calls out, you will take the branch which turned into Nakash. So there it says Nakash, right? So it's like, well, is this just a translation thing? What's going on? But keep in mind that the rod had become a serpent earlier at Sinai. It doesn't mean that it was a serpent in the scene just before that. It just meant that this rod had been a serpent on Mount Sinai. Then say to him, Yahuwah, the ever-living Allahia of the Hebrews, has sent me to you to say, send forth my people that they may serve me in the wilderness. Behold, if you will not listen to that, thus says the ever-living, by this you will learn that I am Yahuwah. When I strike with the branch which is in my hand upon the waters which are in the river, they shall turn to blood. And the fish which are in the river shall die, and the river shall stink, and the Mitzrayim will become exhausted trying to drink of the water of the river. Yahuwah, the ever-living, also said to Meshaha, declare unto Aaron, take your branch and extend it over the waters of Mitzrayim, over the flowing streams, over the brooks, the pools, and over all the reservoirs of water, and they will become blood. And they shall be blood in the land of Mitzrayim, both in wood and in stone. Therefore Meshaha and Aaron did as the ever-living commanded, and he lifted up the branch, and he struck the waters which were in the river before the eyes of Pharaoh, and before the eyes of his ministers, and all the waters in the river turned to blood. And the fish which were in the river died, and the river stank, and the Mitzrayim were not able to drink of the water from the river, for it became blood in all the land of Mitzrayim. The sacred scribes of Mitzrayim, however, did the same in their mysteries. I actually really liked the way that she wrote mysteries there. And I'm trying to find this now. Give me a second. So in her new edition, which she's working on right now, she's going to have a second edition out of Exodus. And we're actually getting the entire Torah put into one book, Genesis through Deuteronomy. I'm really looking forward to that. Her new edition isn't just mysteries. It's actually their hidden mysteries, which is going to be able to be cross-referenced with, interestingly enough, Genesis 3:24. So what were the hidden mysteries in Genesis 3:24 was the flaming sword. Why I love this is that this will also tie into the book of Enoch. And the idea, though, of hidden mysteries is that it can also be it can also be the word for enchantment. So think of like the mystery religions. You can think of like the enchantment religions. These are the hidden mysteries. And it can also mean flame, like, of course, the angelic sword. But who introduced the angelic sword to humanity was Azazel in Genesis. And what did the Watchers do? They brought the hidden mysteries of heaven. They were worthless mysteries, but they were true mysteries of heaven. So it's just interesting here to see that these this war that's going between Moses and the wizards of Egypt are the mysteries, the hidden mysteries. Therefore, the heart of Pharaoh was strengthened, and he would not listen to them, just as Yahuwah the ever-living had foretold. Pharaoh therefore turned his face and went back to his place, and did not alter his heart even for this. But all the Mitzrayim dug pits along the river for water to drink, for they were not able to drink the waters from the river. This continued for 7 days after Yahuwah the ever-living had attacked the waters of the river. I think we're going to we're going to pick up on chapter 8 next week. So we kind of divided this in half. We'll do chapter 8 and go into the Passover event. And last year I did a whole video on the different Exodus accounts. One was from the Kolbrin, which was really incredible. I might source that a little bit next week, but there's not a lot of time in these Torah portions. So I highly recommend you go check out that video from last year. And also the one where I talk about the gods of Egypt, how each of the plagues was an assault on the gods. I'm going to end it here tonight just so I can spend more time on these plagues themselves. I don't want to skim over them too much. I love you guys. Have a good Sabbath rest. Shabbat shalom to everybody. Thank you for coming here week after week. Come by, say hi on Discord. Of course, I'm back on Facebook again. I've started a Facebook community there, Facebook group. So come by in there. We just started it a few weeks ago, whatever it's building. Come on, say hi. And that's all for now. So we'll do this again next week.